Good afternoon
All
to
good.
all of you. I hope you're well. Hope your families are well.
All
Oh,
good.
all righty. Just getting in. Good afternoon to all of you. I hope you're well.
Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon. How are you? How's Ramadan going for everyone?
Doing great, actually. Thank you for asking.
Morning, doctor.
Good afternoon to all of
Or
you.
good afternoon. I'm in the US, so still good morning.
Oh, it's good morning to you. Okay.
So, doctor, I still see like I have 3F and my
I'm going
grade
to
is
email you with Mike, our IT person, because we looked at your grades this week again and we put everything in order and we didn't see on our side. So I'm going to email him as soon as we get out of class. I'm making notes now. I'm going to put your
okay.
name on the email and ask him to get a copy because you're seeing, is it still week 6 that you're seeing the second grade?
I see week 8 as F, while it's graded. I see week 9. I see week 10.
Are you saying that those are the ones that you see multiple grades? Is that week 8, 9,
No,
and 10?
no, no. There is no multiple grades now, but the grade is F, while it shouldn't be F. I mean, I did submit everything, so
Okay.
I'm not sure. If you can double check, that would be appreciated.
Okay, we're just going to wait for a few more minutes for everybody to get in because I have a few announcements about past assignments if they're not posted. As you can see, because we have to get everything graded, some of you may have zeros where you don't have papers post for previous weeks. And because we are getting to the last hour, grades have to get in. And even though you don't have an end date, you're still supposed to post at the assigned time. And a lot of that has not happened for some of you. And so I had to put grades in. Um, Second here. I am looking for, so we're going to go through a few things and then we're going to get started. And then we're going to go through the test because the test is available so you can start working on it because it is something that needs to absolutely be posted and it's open book. As we stated, it's going to go from chapters 1 through 6 because 7 is not going to be in there. And then from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then we have the abbreviations that are bonuses. And so let me see where we at with people in the class. We got 17. I'm gonna give it one more minute. I'm looking at something for you, Addie. So hold on one second. I want to see. Move you over to this screen as people pop in. Okay, somebody was trying to get in. Let me make sure I've let everybody in. Permission. Okay. Good afternoon, good morning to all of you. And I'll get that as soon as I get a little break here. I have you down on my sheet for today. I want to pull. Okay, just take a look. We're going to go ahead and get started. Again, if I have not spoken to you last week, if you have any outstanding papers that are really like severely past due, then as you know, you're losing points for those. So if you're posting on time, that doesn't apply to you. That only applies to a few of you that are like a few weeks behind. For the most part, everybody is current. If there's anybody that needs to meet with me after class, please put your name in the chat because I did reach out to some of you this week to have a conversation with you about some assignments. Um, Again, my role here for you, I know a lot of you said that you're not used to writing an APA style. Again, this is a master program and you're going to have a master's thesis that you have to turn in to graduate, and you're going to have to write an APA style. And so the alignment was for us to start getting you prepared for that, because waiting at the last minute will like ensure that you don't be successful in it. Because if you're not familiar with APA format, and for me, always saying it's just telling a story in a paragraph, making sure you have 5 to 6 sentences, making sure there's no graph, because you can say the word, you can tailor a paragraph in words when it comes to graphs. It's making sure you have a reference page. It's making sure you have an introduction, the body, the paragraphs in between, and conclusion, and submitting it with a title page and stuff. And then I provided you multiple examples. I've asked for the next class. Unfortunately, this is something I learned along the way. I did the first case study so that they can kind of see, hey, this is the case study, same case study you have. I wrote it in an APA format, put reference, met the page count, because again, that's another thing. Your page count doesn't include your reference and your title page. It was supposed to be 1,150 words and above. And that's what a normal APA paper format is. And so I took that first case study and I wrote it myself and posted it, but it was too late because, we had already passed it. And then you selected. Another thing that I've learned in this class that I probably should have leaned in and said, you can have a case study one week, study the next week, and stuff like that, because you need to practice APA format. It's not something you should be afraid of. I remember my first time really understanding the importance of it, and it conveys your message really, really well. And so that's the little point on that. I do want to show you the test again. We are in week 11. We got 2 more weeks left. And you don't have hold on, let me admit somebody. I hear somebody trying to get in. Okay. Hold on here. Give me just a second. Okay. I'm going to show you the instructions on the test. You are going to download it. It's posted. Let me just give me a second here. You're going to fill it out. Again, there's true and false, multiple choice, and fill in the blank. It's not passages. It's one word or maybe 2 words. It's sentences from the book, and you fill in with the multiple choice. So it's a very clean test. And then give me a second here. Okay. You have until April the 14th to get that in. It will not be accepted anytime later. Let me share my screen because I want you to see this, because I have to then go and grade it. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
doctor.
Yes.
And Does everybody have their book? I know I keep asking that, and some of you message me later and be like, I don't have the book. Um, I really need to know you have access to the book, because if you don't have access to the book, I don't think you're going to be able to Google these questions. So I want to make sure you have access to the book. Um, Here is where you post it. As you can see, there's no other assignments the last week. This is where you post it, just like a paper. You will upload it into the system like a paper. And hold on. Out the way. I got a few screens going on here. Where is the test? Where we are in, okay, I think it's, give me just a second. I hope I didn't accidentally move it again. Chapter 10. Here it go. Okay. Okie dokie. Tell me if you can see. I'm opening it. Can you guys see me open it?
Yes.
Okay. And then, of course, exit the enable edit. And then you see, here it is. It's 8 pages because there's 30 questions. But you see, this is the test. It's very clean. I've already taken it, done it myself. And then there's a bonus where the abbreviations, you guys know we did a ton of abbreviations. And so that's it. And that's 10 points.
Doctor, are you displaying something? Because nothing is being displayed.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Can you see it now, the final?
Yeah, now we
Yes,
can see the
yes.
test.
Okay. So here it is. Like I said, it's very clean. Pick your answers, true and false, fill in the blank. It's very clean. You need to make sure you're reading these sentences. And then, like, fill in the blank, like these abbreviations, we went through every class, we went through multiple abbreviations. And so just like what you can do is fill it in words and remove it. And then you upload it the last week of class. You don't have an assignment, so you have plenty of time to start working on it. I would work on 3 or 4 questions a week. That way I can get it all done on time, or like whatever your style of doing stuff is. I normally take the big things, get them done, then work easy with the small thing. That's just my method of madness. But that is what the assignment is. And again, chapter 7 and chapter 14 are not in it. Everything is in order from chapter 1 on down. I'm not going to tell you how many questions. Then at that point, I need to just give you the answers. But it's really, really easy. Download it, fill it out, and then upload it. So does anybody have any questions? And it's already there, so you can go ahead and get it. It's no big deal. Um,
What was the deadline?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What was the date of the deadline?
April the 14th.
14.
The
Perfect.
14th. Class ends on the 16th. Please, those of you that are behind on your papers, please do not wait to the last minute. I grade like after class. I normally get the next deck ready. I update. I do class. Like last week, I did Monday, Sunday, and Tuesday, and so I try to grade because again, there's 32 students in this class, and so I try to get all your grading done. I teach somewhere else, so I have 2 days. I try to only commit one day, And so after class, I try to get caught up on all my grades. Some of you email me during the week, and that's completely fine. I'm available for you guys if you need anything, but I don't grade until the next following Sunday. And that's when I'll be working on like chapter 13 and getting everything cleaned up and stuff like that. So if you're waiting on grades, you are. I'm gonna send an email to Mac about you. I'm gonna look at your 8, 9, 10 and see, but that's not what I have. Unless you posted something in the wrong week and I've sent emails to you on that about making sure you're looking at the syllables. Because some people are posting assignments from other week, you're putting double assignments. It's one assignment, and if you have multiple assignments, you need to move it. I'm not going to give you credit for the previous week if you got them posted in the same week. You need to follow the instructions. So every week, outside of week 1, 2, and 3, where you had a case study and study and challenge questions, you just have your study questions. So please make sure you're following the update syllables. Remember, we started in week 1 and 2. So of course, the second week was going to be chapter 3 because we did 1 and 2 already. So please, please, please just make sure you're following that, because I am emailing you saying, hey, you're out of order with your assignments. You need to go back in, and I'm saying that I'm giving you a 0 until that's updated. So if you have a 0, that may be the reason why, because you got the wrong assignment. And then I say, just go in and get it updated and let me know when you get it done. And then when I regrade, I'll grade it the way it's supposed to. But like I said, I read all assignments. I read your study questions, all of that. Okay, we're good. All righty, we're going to get started because I know we got a break so that you can go and fast. Okay, can you see my screen where I have part 5, supply chain logistic administration?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and try to do this again with the slideshow. Okay, give me just a second. Because we got like 200 some slides here. So, and then like I stated, this chapter is also going to talk about some careers. So while I'm getting to the right slide, how about you tell me the reading assignment this week? What did you observe in the reading assignment this week? I'm talking to the class now. That's not something I can answer. Nobody did the reading assignment this week? Well, I'll take that silence as a no. Going to be important for your test that you have read and paid attention to this, because it's going to be really, really important. Okay, so chapter 5 is supply chain logistic administration. And can you guys see my screen? Can't see it. Okay.
Yes, doctor.
Not here. Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 12. All right. So as you can see here, supply chain career path are not always linear. So I've learned in my professional career, you don't necessarily go up, you go across the organization. And the reason why I say that is because I find that the more information you have across the organization, the more successful you are. I've tried that and benefited from it many, many ways. So these are some of the careers. It has the early careers, mid careers, late careers, and the C-suite. As you can see, starting out as a logistic resource planner. Uh, the next one is a production planner. These have everything to do with like supply chain, like we've been talking about, like procurement and forecasting and supply chain in its raws and natural forms. So these are some of the careers when it comes to like logistic resource planning, product planning. A buyer works in the procurement department, warehouse administration. They work in the distribution center where the inventory often sit. Mid careers are a capacity planner. They're forecasting. Should I have this on the east side of Egypt, on the north side of Egypt? Quality manager, making sure those products and goods that are dispensed out to consumers are being taken care of. Because you guys know that once you get a product in the warehouse, it's your responsibility to maintain the safety of it. Category managers, those work with the buyers. So like at Walmart, that's a good place where they had tissue paper. They were category managers for tissue paper, and that's tissue paper for all Walmarts. It just wasn't like a specific location. They had different people on their team that bought for different locations, but that's what they were responsible for, the product itself, based on like tissue or socks or bottles or food, like whatever their category were. Logistic managers, of course, they work in the warehouse, making sure that the product is being delivered on time. Oh, sorry, guys. Making sure that the product is delivered on time. And then, of course, the late careers, supply chain director, director of operation. Director of operations oversees the whole distribution center. Supply chain, of course, we know what that is. That's an inventory. Procurement directors, all the buyers and suppliers and raw materials, that all sits under their blueprint of their job function and roles. And then, of course, logistic director, they're working with the trucks. They're making sure that if they're contract or non-contract, or if they're private fleet, they work there. And then the C-suite positions are the chief supply chain officer, which is after logistic director. They normally become that chief operating officer. They call it a COF, a COO. That is the director of operations, normally reports to the chief operation officer. And then chief procurement officer, that's the procurement. So that's, you become a buyer. You go to school for merchandise and fashion, you're a buyer. Then you're a category manager. Then you're a procurement director, and then you're chief procurement. So these are some of the careers along the way. And then, of course, you have things like in customer service where they call in about that, but that's always operated in the customer success or the customer service side of the business. And so while it's a part of the supply chain, it doesn't sit under that supply chain's line of business. So these are some of the careers and stuff. Again, I've already posted this week 12, chapter 12 in your chapter 11. So you have access to these careers if you want it. And if anybody wants me to send them anything additional on that, just, send me an email and I'll get that out to you. So, all righty. So now we are in chapter 12. I think chapter 12 for me was one of my favorite chapters because it's talking about the business of supply chain. We've talked about this in fleets. Like we're very at the end of this book, and this is a really big book. It's a really good book too. And so we talked about part one. We talked about logistic management. So we talked like the 21st century supply chain information technology. And chapter 3, we talked about logistics, and then 4, customer accountability. Then in part 2, we talked about supply chain operation. That's integrating operation planning, procurement, and manufacturing. And then part 3, we talked about supply chain logistic operation. That was 7. While we kind of went over it, we didn't dive deep into it. That's inventory. And then chapter 8 was transportation. Chapter 9 was warehouse, material handling, and packaging. And then part 4 was logistics design. That was the network. So that's global supply chain. And then that we also talked about network design. We talked about how the network lets us know that when a package has been delivered to a consumer's house, we have the tracking information where we can see where it started in like the north side of Egypt and it's been delivered to the east side. So we talked about that. And then part 5, which is the last part that we're in, it talks about the logistic administration. So that's relationship management, performance management, and then chapter 14, where we'll go through it. It's not part of the test, but we're still going to go through it. It's supply chain trends, because we're going to see a lot of that like in real world examples. Okay, so chapter 12, we talk about the intro. And can everybody still see my screen? I want to make sure you can see my screen, because sometimes you'll be like, oh, we can't see your screen. It's here. I got it
Yeah,
highlighted.
we
Okay,
can
great.
see it's written introduction.
Martin, did you say something?
Yeah. I say we can see, Professor, your screen. The topic on the slide is titled Introduction.
Okay. So this is the introduction to chapter 12, and I kind of recapped it. So this is going to be different from what's in the book, but I took like highlight points here and I put it here. Amongst topics and logistics, few hold more senior leadership interests than the development and the management of organizational relationship. Historically, energy has been devoted to developing and implementing an approach internal structure to effectively and efficiently perform the essential functions of logistics. In most recent time, aiding by evolving and broadening understanding of logistics, increased attention has been focused on logistics operation integration with other functions, especially customer relationship management, manufacturing, procurement, and even more recently, product development, merchandise, and arguably most important, financially. It talks about the essence of success supply chain management. It's the ability to orchestrate collaborative relationships, cross functional within enterprise and external with supply chain partner. So this is all talking about like how important the relationship is. It's also talking about, for real world example, how all of these factors contribute to me getting this bottle of water. So the cost, that's why they have here on page 385, as you can see, they have like all these different roles and stuff like that. But it highlights the point that the presentation of chapter 12 begins with the attention to integrate organizational practice. The dominant topic of discussion through the balance of chapters is the growing and essential practice in collaboration. So now let's get into development of management and integration relationship. So prior to 1950, so that's a really long time. That's what, 70, we're in 2024, 74 years. Function now except as logistics was generally viewed as a facility or supported work. Organization's responsibility for logistics was typically dispensed throughout the firm. So, unlike it being its own business unit now in 2024, in 1950, 74 years, it was dispensed out through the organization. This person may have had a few responsibility. This person. Can you imagine how messy that was? Like our minds probably can't even perceive that. If you look at the figure 12.1, traditional organization of logistic related functions, you see at the top where it says chief executive, which is the CEO position, right? And then under it, you have financial, you have manufacturing, you have marketing. And you see how they have inventory control was under finance and ordering process and credit authorization, management, information systems, and facility planning was under financial, right? Because they were tethering it to the financial cost instead of it being a business unit that contribute to the finance. And then under manufacturing, you see material requirement planning, purchase, raw material, finished goods, transportation, industry engineering, and product scheduling. And then under marketing, they had forecasting because it makes sense that you would think forecasting would be under marketing because marketing has what SKU numbers are coming off the shelf quick, right? And then, of course, customer service, order services, and finished good and firm warehouse. And so that was part of the process when it came to developing and managing internal logistic relationships. Now, if you move over to function educate, you see that in the next title. And there's a little figure where you see the people kind of standing up. And it talks about the motivation driving function education was a growing belief that grouping logistic functions into a single organization will increase the likelihood of integrating and facilitating improvement understanding of how decisions and processes in one operating area impact performance in other areas. The belief was that the function aggregation will facilitate function of total system performance. This integration paradigm based on organization proximity prevailed throughout 35 years. Many different types of levels of function integration was tested during this time. For many firms, the ink had barely dried of what approval would be the first logistic organization when new and far more rethinking of this constitution of ideal structure emerged. And so, as it stated back when operations, logistics, supply chain, it's now called supply chain management because everything is under there. But before they called it different business units because they felt like you could just marry a lot of these parts into other business units. So, how do you guys feel about that? Do you think, with the knowledge you have now, that having them be integrated into other business units was a smart strategy? Yes or no? And explain the why behind the answer. I'm going to wait till somebody answer that. So nobody has an answer for that?
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. The question is based on what we just discovered with how back in 35 years ago, based on the reading, it stated that they felt like supply chain, instead of it being its own business unit, they can integrate it into the different business unit that we just spoke about on page 351, which is figure 12.1 in your book, how to migrate those into those different business units, finance, manufacturing, and marketing. Do you think that was a smart strategy with the information you currently hold around supply chain? And if so, defend your answer.
I think that's a big question, but typically from the supply chain, we can have a lot of data that can be used in other uh, industries or in other kind of work if it was like sorted in the right way. Uh, so for the manufacturers, they can tell which markets in demand for this product. Uh, I think something like that. I'm not sure. But
Okay.
the raw data can be used in several ways once it's sorted in the right way.
Does anybody else want to add to that?
I'll take a stab at it. So I would say, yes, relying on the information that's coming from marketing and relying from information coming from different departments and how feasible a product is, how profitable it is, how feasible having cost effective having a location in certain geographical area, for example, is that these information has to be exchanged between different departments for the efficiency and harmony of the logistics process to operate. I mean, I'm just using common sense over here. If every department has it, is working independently and not relying on the other information coming from marketing and forecasting and all that, that could cause problems. So you really have to marry those departments together and have them work together to achieve maximum efficiency and profitability.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, as a person that's in a high level position, collaboration is the only way any successful team operates. Because if you're operating in a silo, you are doing something that's going to have a downstream impact on other business units. And if they're not aware that is happening, your customer is going to be the one that's going to feel the impact of that. So your brand is going to be in jeopardy of being not trusted, or a customer calls in for a new product and services. You're unaware. You tell the customer it's not happening. Then they call back and get the sales team and they telling them yes. And that information wasn't translated to that side of the business. The customer has lost confidence in your ability to deliver. So now the sales team that should be focused on selling products is now focused on maintaining and servicing a customer, where the customer success or the customer service team should have been focused on. But because you worked in the operating in a silo approach and not partnering, understanding the collaboration benefits, you've now mitigated and caused the problems. And so collaboration, I will tell you, I work with the sales, I work with the technology, product management team all the time, because my team is the one that's going to feel the impact of the unknown. And it's going to have an issue on our brand, and especially now when everything is online, where customers go and complain about a company online. Recently, there was a thing done on like TikTok where the customer was complaining about trying to get some service through like AT&T, and AT&T, because it blew up, AT&T got involved and tried to understand, how did this happen? And so you don't want that to happen to you, so you need to collaborate with your peers in other business unit. Even if it's not essential today, the partnership would eventually be essential, because you may be able to go to them and say, hey, this is happening. Are you guys impacted? And they like, no, but this may be this person and this person. I'm telling you, I have found that the most successful partnership in the organization, where somebody pairs me with someone to get answers to questions that I'm being impacted back, and I don't know where to go to get the answers. So collaboration is important. 35 years ago, them being, and maybe, right, maybe supply chain should have stayed in all those different business units. And so I understand them trying to separate it and outgate it out. I understand the thought behind that, but I hope they still have their handprint on the other business units to be successful. Okay, now we're going to go to developing process perspective. And this just talks about, under developing process perspective, you have process integrated burials, you have the great divide, you have the process structure, you also have figure 12.3. And it talks about, again, the relationship. It talks about the process owner and the different business units impacted. That's another really good, that's 12.4. That's processing organization. That's a really, really good chart as well. So pay attention to that. But developing a process perspective, it just talks about in the reading around the during the last half of the 20th century, business activities essential to the logistic performance underwent a major transformation. And that's where firms began to examine the role of logistic compliance was capable of playing a developing customer loyalty. So they understood that, hey, by this business unit being essential and standing on its own and having someone understand the strategy, the thought behind it, it could help keep customers loyal to the brand, which is really, really smart. It was clear that the organizational structure was not as critical as the logistic performance, as was cross functional or process performance. High performance firms began to stress integrated processes. Of the 8 key processes discussed in Chapter 1, we talked about that to the significant degree. The focus on process reduced the pressure of aggregate functions and to self-incomplete organizational units. The critical questions become not how to organize individual functions, but rather how to overcome barriers to integrate and best manage the overall logistic process. So that's why you have like process integrated barriers here. And that's basically talking about it's important to recognize barriers that serve as process integrations, barriers to internal integrations find their origin in traditional function practice relates to organization measures and reward system, integrated leverage, infrastructure systems, and knowledge hoarding. And so it just talks about how important it is to really understand it. And then it also talks about traditional measure and reward systems also serve to make cross-functional difficulty. Measuring systems typically mirror organization structure. Most reward systems are based on function achievement. To facilitate, integrate, process, new measure increase are called balanced scorecards, and they must be delivered. Managers must be encouraged to view specific function as contribute to the process, then standalone performance. And so I thought that was a really interesting point. And then it also talks about the ERP, and we all know the ERP is the blah, 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 the inner and system. And so again, let's pay attention to these enterprise resource planning systems. Now the Great Divide, and we know what that means. The Great Divide is clearly many obstacles must function integrated differently. To some extent, the 5 barriers discussed above have contributed to a common situation in business reference as the Great Divide. The Great Divide reflects an organization condition which in achieves integration and partially but not completed to an end-to-end basis, as illustrated. And again, that's 12.3. Next, it also talks about S&OP, that's sales and operation planning. We discussed that in chapter 5. And it talks about such interest reflects such integrated efficiency reflects cross-functional integration that in fact extend beyond a single business enterprise. Despite these accomplishments, managers report considerable difference in linking these 2 types of external collaborations into enterprise-wide integration process. In short, managers seem to achieve more successful integration with external business partners than they do with managers and departments within their own firms. And that talks about the sales and operation planning that we discussed in chapter 5. Again, 12.4, that talks about the processing organization, process owners, and that's demanding planning, process owner, customer relationship, process owner, order fulfillment and service, process owner, that's product, supply, and development launch. That's the processing team, marketing, procurement, process owner, manufacturing, customization, procurement, manufacturing, logistic, process owner, supply relationship, collaboration, process owner, life cycle supply, and then process owner, reversing logistics. Okay, Process structure. That's the last one on developing a process perspective. Again, that is tethered to 12.4, how an organization might structure around the 8 supply chain processes discussed in chapter 1. Each process is key to the process owner who manages a team of managers drew from the critical function area that impacts the process performing. This concept of process organization is the result of 3 things. 1, the development of high level involved work environments with self-directed work teams as a vehicle to empower employees to generate a maximum of performance. 2, improved production that resulted from manufacturing process rather than function, a notion that has always rested on the core of integrated logistics. And 3, the rapid sharing of accurate information that allows all facets of the organizations to be integrated. It also talks about information technology is viewed as a load barrier structure of a new enterprise, replacing organization hierarchy. Next is development of management and supply chain relationship. I really like this section because, again, it's just showing the integration between all the different business units. And it talks about first function, beliefs of cooperation behavior will reduce risk and greatly improve efficiency for the overall logistics performance. And it kind of backed it up from the beginning. It says a supply chain perspective shifts the relevant business model from a loosely linked group of independent business to a multi-enterprise coordination effort focused on supply chain efficiencies, improving and increasing competitiveness. While not all supply chain collaboration agreements involve logistics must do, in such arrangement, attention shifts from firm-based logistic manager to a coordination of supply chain's performance. And the second belief is operating to eliminate waste and duplicate efforts. And then finally, the firm talks about increasing supply chain competitiveness exhibits several simulations, and that is tethered to figure 12.5, where it has supply chain relationship classifications are based on acknowledging dependent and information sharing. And under it, it has contracts, it has outsourcing, administration, allies, and enterprise extension. And then under each of them, it has the different functionalities and procurements. And then in the end, it acknowledges the dependability and the information shared. So from limited to extensive, right? It talks about the partnership in between there. And then that, again, just to kind of reiterate that, it talks about first, they have increased supply chain competitiveness exhibited several simulations. First, they collaborate practice are technology driven. Second, the business solution achieves competitiveness. And finally, most combines of experience and talents of key supply chain participants blend with a combination of third party or integrated service providers. And it's just talking about how they use all these different resources to kind of house this process, but more importantly, make it more efficiency for the customer. Okay, so now we're in the type of chain relationships dependabilities. And again, there's another figure, 12.5. Again, like I stated, I really like that because under contracts, it has product/supply procurement, outsourcing, it has function and process performance. And I really like that because it's saying that as we better understand these relationships and develop supply chain relationship, we don't necessarily during our peak season, our high performance times, we can outsource 20, 35% of our business. And because we have those integrated relationship, our customers won't feel an impact to that shift. And I'm sure what happens is throughout the year, they're sending them products, they're housing like their big ticket items so that when they have to help ship and deliver, and mostly it's going to be in areas where you see high traffic. It may be like in California. You might see it in like Texas, which is a big market. You might see it in like New York. You will see it in maybe not like Las Vegas because Vegas is not as big. You may see it in Arizona, may see it in Georgia, Florida, Um, those are some of the metropolitan cities like Carolinas, North and South Carolinas and stuff that I can think of. So you may see those kind of relationships really big in those areas. But as we talk about the types of supply chain relationship, it talks about there are a number of types and forms of interorganization relationship that tend to be characterized as example of supply chain integration and collaboration. Again, 12.5. Presently, a frame of these relationships. So here we talk about like power and leadership. And again, these are going to be on your test, so pay attention. Dependable and the primary driver of supply chain to the degree that participants' enterprise acknowledge mutual dependence. The potential exists to develop a collaboration relationship. Dependability drives a willingness to plan function integration, share key information, and participate in joint operation. Again, we talked about the major metropolitan cities having 25% of Amazon or Walmart or Kroger's or Target work to help produce and develop. The concept of power and leadership are essential to understand, acknowledge, dependable, and how it makes supply chain integration work. Okay? Now we talk individually about power. Okay, power had a lot of stuff under it. In practice sense, it talks about first, the general term of retail consideration translate into a few but more dominant retails and more extensive markets covered. Second, the proliferation of point of sale data, frequent shopping program, credit card use providers, retail with easy access, vital marketing information. And as a result, retailers are positioned to rapidly identify and accommodate consumer trend. All mass marketing maintains in-store computer, continuous point of sale transmission, and robust data warehouse, enabling reporting to keep buyers and inventory planning fully informed of sales point and deliver marketing trends. And so what that basically means is that, of course, you know, when you're in the market, grocery store, there is a tag on it, and that tags allow you to scan it, and then all that information comes. And what happens in the logistics center that's located on the east side of Egypt is that they get that order and realize that of the 20 that we have in stock, you just bought 2, so we now have 18. And so from that SKU number, it allows them to track that information so that they can make sure they have enough product and services in the store. And so that's what they're kind of talking about with this retail translation into more dominant data and marketing strategy. Next, they talk about the freaking data. We talked about that. And third favor, retailers increase difficulty of high cost manufacture conform and developing new brands. And so that's why you have like Walmart, the great value. They have the crafts and just no Johnson and Johnson. Yeah, they do have Johnson and Johnson products as well. They have McCormick's and Hunt's. So they have those brand name products on their shelves. But a lot of companies, what they've done is the fact is that many private labor brand owners by retail have greatly market penetrated and then the so-called national brand. So you have like this water is a Walmart water because it's called great value purified water drinking. And then you have like Dasani. Water to me is just water. So water is water. So that's why this is the private label. And then Dasani is a national brand label. And finally, as discussed throughout the text, the process of logistic replenishment has shifted towards a response-based position that exists in time and sophisticated orchestration of high voltage marketing place logistics systems are ideally driven from the point of consumer sale to the end of life cycle. So again, I buy it in the store, scan it, put it in my bag, walk through the grocery store, walk through the parking lot, get to my car, drive home, unpackage it, put it in my house, put it in my freezer, let it in my refrigerator, let it get cool, drink it, throw it away, dispense it, the product, the life cycle. And it talks about the result of this manufacturer has a growing range of alternate to dispense these products. That's why you have products being dispensed at home, would order online. Retail stores are doing pickup services where they shop for you and deliver it to the car, and then the consumer going in store and shopping for themselves. Okay, now leadership. Just as individual organizations need leaders, so do supply chain. As the present stage of supply chain maturity, it talks about in many situations, specific firms are thrust into a leadership position purely as a result of the size, economic power, customer patron, competency, product performance. In other arrangements, for less obvious reason, there is a clear presence of leadership on the part of one enterprise, which is acknowledged in the form of mutual dependable and respect on parts of other participant supply chain members. So basically, this is just talking about the different partnerships in this process. In other situations, leadership appears to navigate the firm, initiate the relationship regarding who's leading, who's setting the strategy for the greatness of the relationship management commitment. And so first that attempt is to lead through practices that partners are most likely to commit to the relationship and more likely to seek alternate arrangements. So they're saying that the better the partnership is, the better it's going to be for all organizations. And now they're talking about the second part here is developing trust in those relationships. And so how do you develop as a business owner? How does somebody develop your trust in this role? What do you think? Just hearing developing trust in relationships. Let's just talk about it. How would I develop your relationship? Give me some examples of that.
By honoring any contracts that we sign together, always try to fulfill it to the fullest and fulfill my obligations towards business obligations that we agreed together.
Yeah.
That's how you gain my trust. If you breach contracts all the time, then you're out of business.
Mm-hmm. What's another thing you think could help develop our relationship?
Delivering on time,
Mm-hmm.
keep your word, be there when they need you.
Exceed expectations if possible.
Yeah. Anything else anybody want to add? So I think we kind of hit the nail on the hammer, that expression, because it talks about reliability, delivering on time. It talks about character. Are you a person of integrity? Are you a business of integrity? What is the community saying about you? Do you pay your bills on time? So building trust there. It also talks about um, building trust and relationship. First, the firm must demonstrate reliability in operation. We talked about that. Perform on the promise. We talked about that. Meeting the expectation. We talked about that. So this is how you build relationship. And the same way we do it in our personal lives is the exact same way we did in our professional life. So if you tell me, hey, I'm going to do this on Thursday, then I expect you to do it on Thursday. If you do it before Thursday, then you're exceeding my expectation. And so the same way we do that with building our trust in classes, with students, with professors, we do it in our personal lives, with our neighbors across the street. It's the exact same way we do it in business. The only difference is that oftentimes we have a ton of money and other responsibilities tethered to that. But if you basically use the same principles around building trust and relationship and being a person of integrity, you copy and paste that into your business world as well. Next is managing supply chain relationships over time. And so this also is going to be on your test. And we are getting to the end of this. So I'm going to slow it down a little bit. What time does everybody have to leave? Is it at the 10 o'clock my time? So would that be 6 o'clock your time?
No, I think after 2 minutes we have to go.
Oh, 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm not going to slow it down. Okay, supply chain relationship over time. It talks about initiative, it talks about implement and maintaining. And so maintaining long-term continuation independent is on 3 key activities: mutual strategy and operation goal, two-way performance and measure, and formal and informal feedback mechanism. And so what's important about that, for example, if a manufacturer develops a new product, a mutual goal must be set with the customer's concern that the product position, especially is March launch. Oftentimes, I ask my team when we move from a strategy or we go to something else, I'm like, so did the data? I was like, let me see the data so I can understand why this strategy. And if they don't have the data or they have not sampled it, my next question becomes, as a leader, why this particular strategy? What problem are we attempting to solve without the data to support it that we went with this strategy? And so that's the same thing that they're talking about maintaining. It's that align are typically initiated by firms who are the customers in the relationship. One potential example for this pattern is to exercise buying power. In a buying and selling relationship, the seller, which is me, will often implement reasonable changes at the request of his customers. Also, when a seller presents initial approach to a potential customer about forming an alliances, the suggestion does not carry the same work and the impact as well as suggested and generating within the buyer firm organization. So as a seller, I'm selling this. You're the buyer. You're telling me what you need from this product or relationship or service and how to make it better. But when I approach an ally approach because you didn't have somebody on your end buy it, it's saying that that relationship then changes. And when I originally had all the power, I no longer possess it because I am now partnering with you. And so you're going to have some feedback. You're going to have some ideas how to make it better. You're going to have some knowledge that I don't have because I sold to you, you then sold to someone else, and that feedback came directly to you. And prior to us aligning, you didn't share that information with me. So that talks about initiating a different type of relationship. And here for the example they have is the supplier ally has to examine the ability of redefining the importance of the purchase price. Buyers need a method of incorporating entangled benefits of the ally in a competitive valuation. The key for the buyer is to evaluate the total cost of ownership and not strictly the price purchase. So this bottle of water cost me $8 to make, and I'm only selling it for $2. Is that smart? Yes. Rafi, you have a question?
Actually, not a question, just permission to leave.
Of course.
Also, I need to make sure that next week I don't think we will have a semester lecture because our Eid, our feast.
I will check. Let me check with Sarah. I do want to tell you though, chapter 12 is in the test. No, that's chapter 13 is in your test. So I will cover the chapter 13 the week after and 14 because it is in your test. Okay. Next week. Do I have next week? Do I have class? Okay. For the end of Ramadan. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Virginia. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, guys. Please make sure you get your homework in. Please make sure you read chapter 13. It is important. I will have the slide in for chapter 13 this afternoon, and you need to pay attention to all the highlighted services that I have in there. Everyone have a great Ramadan and enjoy your family.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I will continue this session because this is the last part of it. So thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you, Professor Pai.
You're very welcome. Next, it talks about the buyers needing a method of incorporating the entangled benefits of allies in competitive evaluation. The key for the buyer is to evaluate the total ownership. And like I stated, it takes me $8 to make this bottle of water. I'm not going to sell it for two because that's just not smart business for me. So, what I need to focus on is making this bottle of water for $2 and then selling it for $6. So I've made my money back and then I made a $2 profit. Next, implementing is key to a strategy implementation is choosing a partner wisely and effectively communicating. The partnership have a comparable culture, a common strategy, vision, and a superior operating philosophy. It is not necessary that the organization culture be identified. Rather, the strategy intended and the philosophy must be compared to ensure that the core competencies and strengths are compatible. For example, and we talked about this in a few chapters ahead, we have those private distribution centers. And so they don't necessarily need to save money so our customers can live better, like we do at Walmart. But what they need to do is have a mission of delivering on time, treating their employees with respect. They need to have a vision of we save customers money around product and delivery time. So it doesn't have to be the mission of how we do that in the store. It has to just be that product and delivering. So I ordered this water on Friday. With Walmart, I normally get it on Saturday. They need to have that same ability to get me this water on Saturday as well. So that's kind of sort of what they're talking about when they're talking about core competency. And then they also talk about in this section, for example, manufacturer initially allied with service suppliers and part of achieving warehouse operation efficiencies, transportation reliability, or an increased consolidated progress that support particular strategies, competitive advantage, and marketplace. Although the service suppliers are leaders, manufacturers may have a more sophisticated and conceptualized. It is essential for the success of this partnership that they align on those basic principles. And so again, we want to make sure that whoever you're partnering with in business, and that means in the sense that maybe you don't even have a fleet, right? You don't have a private fleet. You contract 100% or you farm out. I know we said the word outsource versus farm, but we outsource that's out of our business. They need to have the same integrity with you that they have. They need to have good insurance. So, for example, if the products get damaged, then that's not money coming out of your pocket. That's money coming out of their pocket. And so you need to trust and align with that relationship. Okay, like I said, chapter 12 was really, really small. And so we're coming to the end. And next, I forgot to do termination. We talk as an important part of relationship management. Firms must anticipate the plan that at some future point in time, the allied and the parents so promised will be organized will no longer meet expectation. While some arrangements may encounter a natural death as the result of lost momentum, others may preserve to a point where they are no longer meeting the requirements, or one particular are no longer embody leading edge practices. Less likely, most management concepts, supply chain allies represent dynamic situations. And so what happened is we no longer are doing business with you. Here's an example they provide. A long-standing relationship between Kraft Food and Starbucks reached a unification in 2010. Beginning in 1998, the company had an agreement with Kraft distributing Starbucks bagged coffee in their Seattle-based brand in supermarkets across the U.S. Annual sales grew from 50 million to 500 million over 1 year. Starbucks entered into a single cup coffee market, however, representing more that threat Kroger's business. Starbucks, additionally, instant coffee was met with considerable market success. Starbucks also, what happened was Before Starbucks had all these Starbucks stores all over the world, they sold that product in a grocery store. And then when they started to sell it in their like single, they went brick and mortar, right? At first they were just mortar online. And then when they built their first store in Seattle, which is where their headquarters at, they started to see that traffic, right? And so they built one by their home office and they soon built one like 2 miles away. And then they started popping up all over Seattle. And so what happened was that business strategy threatened Kroger's because in a year at Kroger's, they went from 5 million to 500 million. But then Starbucks introduced an instant cup of coffee that met considerable market success. Starbucks also desired to enter into a partnership with Green Mountain Crossroads, a firm that helped them sell one single cup. And they built a machine that was similar to their store. So Kroger's, the seller, has services and goods. Here at Kroger's, we're selling bag of coffee where you can take it home and make different cups of coffee. And then they partnered with a manufacturer that made a machine that will allow them to do the same thing. Kroger's was not happy with them about that. Kroger's distribution Tans Brew Machine, a major competitor, Starbucks also announced plans to purchase other companies to expand its supply market distribution. Starbucks' desire to end its distribution relationship with Kraft at the original distribution agreement required Starbucks to pay fair market value plus a premium in terms of termination. Starbucks, and to this day, if you go to Kroger's, they're not on their shelves, right? Because of this partnership. And Starbucks, on the other hand, released its own press announcement because they started to get into a debating war. Like, because they paid them to end it and then they paid a termination fee. And then Starbucks, on the other hand, released its own press announcement claiming that Kraft performance as a disputer of the coffee was unacceptable poorly. And it legalized left into a bad partnership. In consideration, the term of the relationship term, Donaldson, the founder of the long-term leader of Snyder Transportation, summed it up very nice when addressed it a logistic class in Michigan State University. He told the students that the very best time to discuss the termination process was during the early formation stages, which is true. Because what you don't want to do, we have a partnership that's going to start from January to January. I'm going to have my termination agreement conversation with you. If the product takes off, if it doesn't take off, you and I are going to formulate that. And that's what happened with Kroger's. With Kraft, they didn't do that. And so it got really, really ugly on the end. And to this day, you don't have Starbucks coffee. And I want to make sure before I say that, let me Google something. I just want to make sure. Give me a second. Give me a second. Let's see. No, they don't. And they paid them 2.7 billion. Ugh. And so what happened was they didn't have that conversation. And so his point was that the expectation of very high at the stage of collaboration when those involved feel the proposed relationship presenting a sound engagement. At this point, most be willing to accept a logistic and fair process for dissolution. And so that's what did not happen. And because that didn't happen, it took them a really long time to litigate that. Because as you all know, Starbucks, and I don't drink coffee, but Starbucks became like $1 billion company. And so Kraft originally was tethered to that stream to have that impact at their stores. And when they decided that they wanted to branch out into other areas, they didn't realize that those are the conversations you should have had first. So I find myself now, because when I was in graduate school, we went through this contract and I presented it, I realize now as a leader, I have all contract conversations up front now. Let's negotiate what that's going to look like, what may change, how it may change the impact, the financial impact, and things of sort. So that's what that's about. So that's why I really like this chapter, because it talks about like these contracts and mitigation. And then your study questions are discuss the 3 challenges logistics face. Your challenge question, using Lowe's and Whirlpool example in the chapter, it's kind of talking about the same thing. And then it also talks about Kraft and Starbucks as your challenge question. So does anybody have any questions?
No questions on my side, Professor.
Okay. I know we're about to end class. I will hang around until 10:30 for any of you that need me to. I'm gonna go ahead and work on chapter 13 so I can get that posted for you. I'm gonna send Sarah an email, and then I'm gonna look at your week 8 and 9 and take a screenshot what I see, and then I'm gonna tell them that you see something different and send that to Mike and see if we can get some answers. Um, if nobody else has anything, and nobody needs to meet with me, I hope everybody is current on their grades. I'm looking at the names to see who's left, because I know a lot of you have left. If any of you have any questions about your assignments, please let me know. If not, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed class today. I hope you all have a good week. Like I said, chapter 12 was really, really good. It talks about logistics undergoing massive changes, new concept, ideas, how the best organization are achieving those logistic goals, the challenges of sorting through the best of time, improving practice, and merging them with the most applied new ideas and concept. Careful review of logistic organization development suggests that more advanced firms have evolved through many forms of function irrigations. It talks about the evolving start with high structure, with logistic, and it talks about 5 decades the firm have grown and increased the number of logistic functions, responsibility into integrating and organization units. And finally, the concept has practice appeal of managing logistic, which involves sustained challenges in terms of time and geographic locations and operations. Thank you all for a good class.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much.
Wishing you a great week to
Thank
you
you
as
guys.
well.
You as well.
See
Don't
you.
forget your test, your test, your test. It will
Thank
end
you
on the
very much.
14th.
Thank
There
you.
would not be any changes on that. I'm not going to be able to help you. So I'm telling you, every test, every question is in that book. So any of you that don't have your book, please let me know. It's really important that you have your book. Thank you. Have a good week. And then if I don't get to see you guys next week, I'll still do chapter 13 here and record it. And you guys can come back and view it later. Okay. Thank you. Have a good end of Ramadan fest.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Have a good week.
you.
Be safe.
Dr. Virginia, like, can I have a quick call with you, please?
Of course you can. You know that.
Yeah, I
Thank
know.
you.
So